Hi everyone, it's Ali and welcome back to the Heffy Doodle YouTube channel. Today I've got this really cute little card using the Elephant of Surprise stamp set, and I'm going to show you two ways to do the mirror stamping technique. And I've watched a lot of YouTube videos myself, in particular Jennifer Maguire, that shows you how to do this technique, so definitely do a search on YouTube if you're interested in learning a bit more. So I'm going to use Elephant of Surprise, as I said, and I've got a piece of acetate there and my misti, and I'm going to push the acetate into the top corner of the misti, and then I'm going to use my versafine ink to stamp on the acetate. I'm using versafine ink because it just takes that little bit longer to dry and just gives me a bit more time to do this technique. So I'm going to stamp that a couple of times just to get a bit of ink on that acetate, and then I'm going to put a piece of card in and flip the acetate over, push it into the corner, and then press down. I just use the powder tool there to begin with because I'm going to emboss this in clear. You can see that it doesn't work that well the first time around, but don't worry, just keep going because you can add more layers of ink as you go along. So again, I'm just inking up, putting my paper back, pushing the acetate into the corner, and gently pushing down. And again, I needed to go in again with the ink, so don't push here where you're closing the lid, don't push too hard, otherwise you'll get smudging on the acetate. And then one more time, just pushing down to transfer the ink onto the paper. And then once I've done that, I just use my clear embossing powder, tap off the excess, and then heat set that with my heat tool. So quite happy with that result, and there was a little bit of smudging, I guess, and I'll give you a close-up in a minute. I'm just going to go and do the proper stamping of the image just on the other side and clear emboss that too. So yeah, this is a good technique and it gives you fairly good results. But as I said, I think the second technique actually worked a little bit better for me today. So this is the first one in close up, and you can see there's a little bit of smudging there on his trunk and whatnot. The second technique, I'm going to put my acetate back in my misti, and I've put my stamp on there with the stamping sort of edge up. I'm taking the foam out, and I've used a stamp that is going to fit over the top, or going to fit over the top of my image, and I'm going to pick that up with my lid. And it's just a full stamp, I guess, a flat stamp. Ink up my elephant and then transfer the ink onto that other stamp. I'm just going to do that a couple of times to get a bit of ink onto the other stamp. And it really doesn't matter what stamp you use, just a stamp that's flat, a flat surface. Put my card in and then stamp that down. And you can push fairly hard on the lid this time to get that transfer of ink. I'm just going to go in again with another layer of ink, tap it on, press down, and then I'm going to put my card back in and push down again. I'm just going over with the powder tool because I know I'm going to emboss it and I don't want to end up with too much extra powder everywhere. And I was happy with that, and then go over with the clear embossing powder and heat set it. And so the reason that I'm heat setting this versafine ink is because it is not Copic friendly ink. It will smudge if you use your Copics over the top of it, so you need to emboss it so that it doesn't bleed when you're colouring with Copics. Okay, so then I'm just going to stamp my my normal image and emboss that as well in clear embossing powder and heat set. So this technique actually gave me a little bit of a better image, I found, and it was a little bit finer than my original image, but it looks fine. So there's the two comparisons there. So I did like that second technique the best, so I'm going to colour those little elephants now. I've just used my Copics C3, C5 and C9. I'm not going to show you all of the colouring just to save time on the video today. And because you're going to use that mirroring technique, the dies are only going to cut one elephant, obviously. So I did fussy cut both of them just so I had the same sort of look for both of them. Now I'm going to stamp out. I'm going to use the Whatcha saying stamp set, and I'm just going to stamp out 2 of those speech bubbles and the little love you more in one of the speech bubbles. Just again with versafine ink, stamp that on, and it needed 2, so I just gave it another layer of ink. And then that same little, I'm cleaning it off really well there because I'm going to use it again for the love you part and mask off the more. So I'm just positioning it in the speech bubble just so the love you is in there. And then I'm using a sticky note to mask off the more word. So ink that up, remove your mask, and then stamp it. And I was happy with that, so I used the dies to cut out those. I'm just drying it off a little bit because I find versafine, obviously, because it takes a little bit longer to dry off and smudge it. So I'm just drying it off with my heat tool, cutting it out with the dies. Now to finish the card off, I just cut a heart, a stitched heart with a die, and then I'm going to use an embossing folder to give it a bit of texture. And then I also used another embossing folder with some clouds to emboss the front of the card. Now I'm just adhering all those pieces on and stuck some pretty pink Posh sequins on there as well, just to give it a little bit of sparkle.
And that's the card for now. Thanks
and that's
so
the
much
card.
for watching.
So I hope you give this technique a go, and
once you get the hang
the
of it,
elephant
it
of
is
surprise
pretty
stamp
easy,
sets and those little
you can
speech
get
bubble
a little bit
words
more
from the Whatcha
your
saying are
stamp
just
sets as
perfect for
well.
this technique.
So please
Here's some more
catch
videos
some
from
of our other
Heffy Doodle, so I hope you check them
videos.
out.
A few are on the
Thanks
screen
so
now,
much for joining
so
me, and
thanks so
I'll
much
see
for
you again
watching,
next time.
and I will see you again next time.